Questions. Okay, so we're going to do the questions. Okay, what is the purpose of a squelch function?
Of a squelch function?
Squelch function.
So you can hear it.
Delta.
Who said delta? You misread it.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to pass the test, read all the questions and read all the possible answers they're giving you. Every one of them.
Yep.
Okay, I heard Bravo. I only heard one Bravo.
Bravo.
It is Bravo? Okay, let's see. Actually, it's Bravo. What is the primary purpose of a dummy load?
It's not up there.
Alpha.
Prevent transmitting signals over the air when making tests. What does a dummy load consist of? Ooh, we made a
Bravo.
non-inductive resistor mounted to a heat on a heat sink.
Don't let D fool you on that.
50 ohm reactance used to terminate transmission line. Yeah. What is the effect of excessive microphone gain on single sideband transmission?
Delta.
Yeah, Delta.
No, that won't work.
Will not do that. That's out, so that's out.
Okay.
It's going to distort. Microphone gain is going to cause distort. Too much microphone. Which of the following can be used to enter a transceiver's operating frequency?
Alpha.
Is that you? Who was the second alpha? Alpha? It is. How is squelch adjusted so that a weak FM signal can be heard?
Alpha.
Squelch threshold so that receiver output audio is on all the time. What is a way to enable quick access to a favorite frequency or channel on your transceiver?
Bravo.
It's not Vox? What does the scanning function of an FM transceiver do?
Charlie.
Come on, you guys didn't take time to read all that.
Yeah, there's no way you read all that. Unless you were reading the answers while I was reading the question. And you can't even see it straight on. It is Charlie.
It says tune through. That's all I needed to see.
And you are correct.
What is the result of tuning an FM receiver above or below a signal's frequency?
Delta. Distortion.
It is delta. Which of the following controls could be used if the voice pitch of a single sideband signal returning to your CQ call seems too high or too low?
Delta.
Why would you not want to just change frequency?
Oh, good question.
I want to get the answer right.
So the other guy is off frequency. You tune over to him. He hears you off frequency now.
So he
And
tunes.
he changes his.
Now you're
And if
chasing
you
each
hear him off frequency,
No, it's
you
not
change
this.
him.
It's not this. It's
You'll end up chasing each other.
That's chasing.
what is the advantage of having multiple received bandwidth choices on a multi-mode transceiver?
Speed. Power up.
I heard somebody say B, but I don't know what that is. You mean Bravo?
Bravo.
Ah, Bravo. Permits noise or interference reduction by selecting a bandwidth matching the mode. Which of the following receiver filter bandwidths provides the best signal to noise ratio for single sideband reception?
Charlie.
Somebody's reading real well or listening real well, one of the two. What is the function of the single sideband CW-FM switch on a VHF power amplifier?
Bravo.
Bravo is correct. What device increases the transmitted output power from a transceiver?
Bravo.
Power amplifier. What can you do if you are told your FM handheld or mobile transceiver is over deviating?
Talk into it.
Delta.
Louder? We want to talk louder?
I like Bravo, but it's Delta.
Talk farther away from the microphone. Why do most solid-state transmitters reduce output power as SWR increases beyond a certain level?
It's Alpha.
Alpha is correct. How much must the power output of a transmitter be raised to change the S meter from on a distant receiver from S8 to S9? So it doesn't matter. Even if you can't remember 6 and 3 as the doublings. Okay, in a Class A amplifier, what percentage of the time does the amplifying device conduct? Class A. That was that top one. Alpha, 100%.
Perfect.
How is a product detector used?
Detector?
Product detector. Using a single sideband receiver to extract the modulated signal. Everybody agree? What say ye, Alva? You're reading them all.
I don't know. I'd say
I'd go with the other guy.
Delta?
Delta.
Delta. Product detector was used for the single sideband AM and the CW. What term specifies a filter's attenuation inside its passband? Attenuation inside the passband.
Alpha?
I heard a questioning alpha. I heard an alpha that wasn't real confident.
You know, I don't think we actually talked about
Yeah, we did. Well, we talked about,
this. It may have been last week when I wasn't here.
yes, we talked
I
about
remember.
insertion loss.
Was right. Not sure.
Alpha?
Right.
You would have got it right, unless you second guessed yourself. Which parameter affects receiver sensitivity? And it's not the size of your wallet, although that does have an effect. Receiver sensitivity.
Delta.
Are we sure? All of these are good? So, receiver sensitivity, would the input amplifier gain of the input amplifier, would that affect sensitivity? In your receiver?
Absolutely.
Has to, right?
Yep.
I jacked it up to where I can hear it. Demodulator stage bandwidth. If I got the bandwidth too narrow, I'm not going to hear it. So that's going to
There's
affect
two
it.
of them.
And the input amplifier noise, there's two, oops, I guess it's D. The input amplifier noise figure, that's how much is it going to, how much noise there is getting amplified. All of those are going to affect your receiver sensitivity. What is the phase difference between the I and Q signals that software-defined SDR equipment uses for modulation and demodulation?
Charlie.
Somebody said, Charlie? Bravo. Phase. What is an advantage of using I and Q modulation with software-defined radios, SDRs? I'm guessing, but I think I got the right one.
Delta.
The advantage of using IQ modulation with software as opposed to others. So I'm going with Bravo. You guys,
I do.
Oh.
I agree with you.
Okay.
all types of modulation can be created with appropriate processing.
Which means it could be analog.
Yeah.
Analog done digitally, right?
Yeah.
Which of these functions is performed by software in a software-defined radio?
Delta.
If it's a radio, it has to filter things. It has to detect them, and it has to do modulation, right?
Yep.
Although, actually, if it's a receiver, it doesn't have to modulate, it has to demodulate. But,
Yeah, but it's still a function. That's
yeah,
what it's talking about.
okay.
It's function.
All choices. Delta.
Delta.
Delta. Okay, what's the term for interference from a signal at twice the IF frequency from the desired signal? Twice.
Charlie. Twice. Oh, twice.
Twice the IF frequency.
Alpha.
That'd be quad is 4, right?
Yeah, quad's 4.
Right. Charlie.
Image.
Really?
Yep. And it is a problem, and we did cover it.
Not wrong.
You're allowed to get some wrong,
Yes,
Yep.
especially in class.
especially in class.
Yes.
Why is it good to match receiver bandwidth to the bandwidth of the operating mode?
Delta. Delta.
Is it required by the FCC rules?
No.
Delta.
Who here's read the FCC rules? All of them.
No.
All of the ham ones, all the ham related ones.
You.
Dave,
Dave.
it's only about that long.
Part 97 is actually a fairly easy read.
It's really easy. There's a lot, there's some spots where it goes, notwithstanding other
Is
regs.
that?
65, isn't that?
Part 65 doesn't pertain to that.
65, that's airplanes.
What's the one they talked about in here?
Oh, that's OEC something bulletin 65.
Yes, yes.
RF exposure. Okay, why is it good? Somebody said delta, right? So it is delta. Okay, what is likely to happen if a transceiver's ALC system is not set properly when transmitting AFSK signals with the radio using single sideband mode?
Delta.
Try again.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's not delta.
I'm gonna go with,
What's ALC stand for?
Automatic level control.
Okay, so is my automatic level control going to invert the modulation? Yeah. Is it going to cause improper action, or is the improper action going to distort the signal and cause spurious emissions? Let's think about that. What about Charlie? When using digital modes, too much ALC activity can cause the transmitter to overheat. We didn't talk about that, did we? So it's probably going to be what Alva thought. Bravo. Not Baker. Bravo. Where's my stick? Where's my stick? How does a noise blanker work?
It turns the switch off.
Charlie.
Turns a switch on?
Yeah. Yeah, it's called dog, you know.
I'd
Or
say
maybe
Bravo.
Charlie. Or maybe Baker.
It could be Alpha. It's not Baker because we don't have a Baker up there.
Could be Alpha.
Could be Bravo, Charlie, or Delta. But it is, somebody said Charlie, reducing receiver gain during a noise pulse.
I don't think so. I think Bravo.
You think it's Bravo, redirecting noise pulses into a filter capacitor?
No.
Is that,
I think he's pulling your leg.
are you yanking my chain there? It's Charlie.
It is.
Noise pulses, reduce the receiver gain during noise pulses. What transmitter performance parameter does a two-tone test analyze?
Alpha.
That was pretty confident. It is linearity. Two-tone test is to check linearity. What signals are used to conduct a two-tone test? Oh, what are? Oh, thank God there's no numbers up there except some degrees.
Bravo.
Two non-harmonically related audio signals? Yeah, I think that's probably it.
Yep.
Non-harmonically related. What is the purpose of a speech processor as used in a modern transceiver?
And this is exactly the phrasing that was used in the data. Really? Yeah.
Delta?
Okay, a speech processor decrease high frequency voice output to prevent out of band operation. Have we talked about out of band operation beyond don't do it? Okay, if you're out of band, you probably put the dial there. So, no,
No.
not Delta.
Alpha.
Increase the apparent loudness. If you have too much speech processing, it's going to distort, right?
Yep.
And what else distorts? Talking too loud in your microphone. So it is alpha. How does a speech processor affect a single sideband phone signal?
Bravo.
Remember we talked about duty cycle with this one?
Yes.
Bravo.
Bravo? It is Bravo, yes. Speech processing increases the average duty cycle, which is done by increasing the average power. It also increases your exposure. Why is automatic level control, ALC, used with an RF power amplifier?
Delta?
What does automatic level control do? It automatically controls the level of the signal, correct?
Right.
Would that do anything to balance something? No. Would it reduce harmonic radiation? No. Would it increase overall efficiency if it reduces the signal? No. Prevents excessive drive. You're talking in and your amplifier's doing fine and you get excited and you raise your voice and you overdrive it and that makes too much go into the amplifier which could harm the amplifier. It'll reduce it so you don't do that.
So you don't harm it.
Hopefully.
Okay.
What happens as a receiver's noise reduction control level is increased? Noise reduction control, what happens?
Alpha.
Alpha is correct. What is the correct adjustment for the load or coupling control of a vacuum tube RF power amplifier?
Bravo?
Bravo. Delta.
Oh, we have a mix here. Bravos and deltas. Okay, minimum plate current without exceeding maximum allowable grid current. Okay, so if I got minimum plate current, can I get close to a maximum?
You can. Oh.
So first, understand the question. Load or coupling control of vacuum tube RF power amplifier.
Delta. This is one of the ones where they're trying to get you to read it too fast. Really, that's all it is. What is the purpose of delaying RF output after activating a transmitter's keying line to an external amplifier?
Charlie.
Everybody agree? Which of the following is common use for the dual VFO feature on a transceiver?
Low frequency and listen on the variable frequency.
Yep.
Why would you want to do that?
That way you can talk to two of them.
Well, your DX station will sometimes have a pileup. They need to spread it out over a band of frequencies, maybe 20 kilohertz. What they'll do is they'll listen on another frequency. They'll listen, and they'll listen on several different frequencies up and down that segment, but they're transmitting on one. So you want to be able to listen to both of them and know where he's transmitting at the same time, and you're transmitting on his receive frequency. Done a lot of DX.
And during contests, it's really fun to listen to one of those stations. It's operating, it's called Split, and listen to them and hear the guy that's calling on the station's transmit frequency, and he's the only guy calling. And he doesn't understand why nobody's answering him. Why isn't he hearing me? Because he's not listening there. He's +5. You might say +5. Listening +5. Maybe you have the answer. How does a noise blanker work? The correct answer is not up there. I'll tell you that right now. The correct answer is by flipping on the switch. That's how it works. Turn it on.
Yeah, but the switch is only enabling the function. They're asking how the function.
Well, that's how it works. Turn it on.
Charlie.
That's a repeat question.
We just had that, didn't we?
Yes.
Had a T on it though.
Yeah.
What is the effect on plate current of the correct setting of a vacuum tube RF power amplifier's tune control? There's one word up there that gives you the answer.
Alpha.
That ain't the word.
I was trying to.
A
figure out-
pronounced dip
Huh?
is the correct setting for a vacuum tube power amplifier's tune.
Pronounced dip.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, you got me on that.
Want to explain?
When you get to the right frequency, you're going to see that dip as it gets to a resonant level with your antenna. So then you can increase your settings to get that back up again to your correct power level. But that dip is important to you because it indicates when you've got your resonance going.
It's a dip in the current.
Yep.
Using less power to push
It's
it out.
going.
Yeah, that works better. What is the effect of an incorrectly adjusted speech processor?
Alpha.
Oh, it's delta. All of those.
Oh.
You're going to go distorted speech, and you're going to want to click that answer. And it may not be in this order. Delta will always, all of the above will always be delta. But it may not be in this order, but you are going to see distorted speech and go, well, it is, but it's also those other two.
Distorted speech is correct. It's just not complete.
How is the efficiency of an RF power amplifier determined?
And this is one of those questions that you're never going to use in practice, I promise you. Charlie.
I got a guess. Multiply the RF output, multiply the RF power output by the reciprocal. Do we even know what a reciprocal is?
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's not it. I think it's Bravo.
Uh,
Divide the RF power output power by the DC input power. Okay, whatever. If that's
Yeah,
what-
just memorize this one, okay?
Yeah.
Because you're never going to use it.
if
Yeah,
I-
but they're talking about a number that you don't care about.
Right.
And none of us do. They're talking about the efficiency number.
Well, then why is it up there?
Because
Watch us.
there's
Because
some,
it's because it's ARR.
Book and you need to read it.
it's not just the ARRL.
This justifies them selling you the manual.
It is the NCVEC
Yeah.
puts together the question pool committee, and they come up with it. And so, who's on there? Are they technicians? No. They're extras. Most of them are older than I am. But might be some young ones on there.
I don't
A
think
lot
so.
of, might be some radio snobs in there, and they think that ham radio is too easy to get a license for, so they put questions like that in there for you. So when you become an extra, then you can get on the NCVEC and you can change some of these questions maybe.
And one
Okay.
thing becomes apparent here, okay? Anybody that gets 100% memorized the answer. Because if you're doing it through logic and you're doing it through learning,
You
It
can't.
ain't
you're
gonna
gonna miss
happen.
something.
It ain't gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Which of the following describes a linear amplifier?
And we covered this one pretty severely.
What do linear amplifiers do besides amplify?
Bravo.
Preserves the input waveform. For which of the following modes is a Class C power stage appropriate for amplifying a modulated signal? That's a Class C power stage, not amplifier. Delta? SP, FM, and AM.
Nice try though.
Class C.
Class C, the most efficient and the most distorted. Where does that not matter?
How about alpha?
Do you want to listen to an AM distorted signal?
It's continuous wave.
Alpha.
Ah! Bravo! FM. FM.
He's trying to screw it.
You didn't hear me going. FM. FM mode. Class C power stage is appropriate for amplifying a
And
modulator.
why is that distortion not relevant to FM?
Space between waves.
Correct.
There you go.
Perfect.
See, I knew that.
Okay.
But they didn't ask it that way. What is the purpose of neutralizing an amplifier?
I would say Bravo. See, I can't get them all wrong.
There you go.
You know, if you say bravo every time, you'll get some. What circuit is used to select one of the sidebands from a balanced modulator? We've got a balanced modulator. We want to take one sideband. How would we do that?
Alpha.
Instead of stuck with bravo on that one. The filter, you're going to filter out the other part. What output is produced by a balanced modulator?
You know, I'm not sure if this was actually, if this was stated in the material, it was last week when I wasn't here.
I know.
Okay,
When I was, I don't remember that
So-
all there.
so to get this one right, FM has one thing going through, and we just changed the width of the frequency, right? But if you want to balance something, what's required? Two sides. Double sideband.
Gotta be double.
Does that make sense, Alan?
Yep.
Okay, you want to balance it? It's got to be double
Gotta
sideband.
have two.
Which of the following is an effect of overmodulation?
Okay, so think about the word overmodulation. Automatically insufficient anything isn't there.
So overmodulation is too much, right?
Right.
Excessive is a synonym or pseudonym? No, synonym? Synonym? Synonym for too much. What control is typically adjusted for proper ALC setting on a single sideband transceiver? I would say the ALC control, but I don't think that's going to be up there.
I don't think it is either.
Darn. What would you adjust for proper ALC? ALC is what? Automatic level control. So we want to get it not working, not having to kick in, right? We don't want the ALC to activate. So if it's going to activate, we've got too much of something. So what might we be able to use to reduce something? Transmit audio or microphone gain. I heard gain. I didn't hear
Now's
bravo.
the chance to say dog.
Dog?
Dog. Now, see there, it wasn't the.
It was Baker, wasn't it? What is meant by the term flat topping when referring to an amplitude modulated phone signal?
Delta.
Flat topping. Is it proper?
Maybe cutting it off.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
So what's the answer?
Charlie.
Excessive distortion caused by excessive driver speech levels. Flat topping. Cuts off all the tones above. What is the total bandwidth of an FM phone transmission having 5 kilohertz deviation and 3 kilohertz modulating frequency? So what kind of math are we applying? Are we doing addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, logarithmic?
Charlie.
Charlie?
Yeah.
8?
You're almost there.
You got halfway there.
5 plus 3 times.
I'm never gonna get that right.
Yeah, you're gonna memorize it, because you're never gonna use it.
What is a frequency deviation? You're gonna memorize this one, okay? What is a frequency deviation for a 12.21 megahertz reactance modulated oscillator and a 5 kilohertz deviation, 146.52 megahertz FM phone transmitter? Anybody want to do the math?
I'd rather guess.
You'd rather guess? How about just memorize it? Just memorize 416.7.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of the notch filter found on many HF transceivers? What's the notch filter do? It chops out part of something, right?
Yeah.
What would you have to chop it out of? Part that's not passed through the filter, or the part that passes through the filter, or the part on the top of the filter, the bottom of the filter, or what? I gave you the answer.
Pass bands with Bravo.
Bravo. And not, so you're only going to hear what goes through the pass band.
Right.
If there's something in there, you can notch it out.
And that's its purpose.
That's what it's for.
What it does is it eliminates a chunk of the pass band.
Okay, why should the ALC system, oh, there's a lot of questions about that ALC, isn't there? You're going to get one, I bet. Why should the ALC system be inactive when transmitting AFSK data signals? Inactive? What does that mean? It's not doing nothing because we're not having to control the level, correct?
Turned it off.
So when transmitting AFSK data signals, why should it be inactive? Because the opposite of that would be what happens when it's active.
Right.
What would happen?
It overheat.
I don't think that's up there.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Where?
Charlie.
Charlie,
Oh, yeah, it is up there.
Yeah, but it's wrong.
I know. Is it Bravo?
It is Bravo. Distorts
We're talking about
ALC.
our buddy distortion again here.
Yeah,
ALC action, it means you're overdriving its level, or something is lowering the level, because
Distorted.
if it's kicking in, it's distorting your AFSK. What is the purpose of using a receive attenuator?
Alpha.
I heard an answer.
Alpha.
Alpha is correct.
Yeah.
Which of the following is an advantage of a receiver DSP IF filter as compared to an analog filter? What's DSP? Digital signal processing.
So what's the single biggest thing that you can do with a DSP structure? You can modify that thing to do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it.
Alpha.
You're right. What does an S meter measure? S meter, what does it measure?
Charlie.
I see two heads shaking at least, so it is Charlie. Received signal strength is the S meter.
Yep.
How does a signal that reads 20 dB over, you gotta use math now.
Oh, this is it.
How does a signal that reads 20 decibels over S9 compare to one that reads S9 on a receiver, assuming a properly calibrated S meter, which you will not have, but delta 100 times. What was the math on that? It was 100 times, but I wanted to know your math. How you got there?
I memorized it. That's my default answer. No, actually, I read that.
Okay. Okay, how much change in signal strength is typically represented by 1 S unit?
Alpha.
Yep. Oh.
1 S unit is 6 decibel.